Okay, hey, hi all. Welcome in today's webinar. My name is Sunan Sharma. I am a facilitator of this webinar. I'm a consultant based in Netherlands. And before I introduce today's guest, a few do's and don'ts. So please be on mute. Please open your webcam during the session because it's going to be interactive. And in case you have any queries or questions, please put in a chat. And at the end of the session, we will take all your questions. So yeah, so let me introduce today's guest. His name is Roger Karlsson. He recently joined IKEA as an Agile Team Coach, having close to 15 plus years of total IT experience. He's based in Sweden, and today we will get to know from him that why he hates Agile. It's a very interesting, phrase which I just heard. So I'm also very excited, Ragit, about this. So yeah, so thanks everyone, and thanks again, Ragit, to joining us today, and welcome to our this session. And yeah, over to you, Ragit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm really happy to be invited to the channel. So thank you so much. And it will be really interesting to talk with you and get your feedback on this topic also. So I will start by sharing my screen. So I think you should be able to see presentation now.
Yeah.
It's a picture of me biting my glasses. I call this I hate Agile. And there's actually a story behind it because I was working with a company several years ago which have divided the development in two different countries. So one part was in France and one part was in Sweden. And when I tried to lift up that maybe we should collaborate in a different way, maybe we should try something agile, I got the response from the French manager yelling at me, I hate Agile. So that was one reaction to it. And a couple of years later, when I set it up as a course at one company, I needed a catchy title. And I thought, yeah, maybe I hate Agile is a good one because it's intriguing in some way. And it's also true because sometimes you face that when you're trying to go in with this mindset into a company, and there are too many thoughts about it, and people have experienced something I don't really like about it. So this is my way of summarizing the experience and trying to move forward in that situation. I've done this concept, I call it as a concept, several times, and sometimes I do it as a 10 minutes speech, just the top of the iceberg. Sometimes I do it as a 4-hour workshop with companies. And but today I will do it in 1 hour, we're aiming for 1 hour, and only the best parts. So that was short about the title and short about me. I've been working with Agile teams for several years, and this is just some kind of summary where I just gather most of my experience also in it. So today we will talk about these things. We will talk about drink less, quit smoking, join a gym, lose weight, get fit, find a new job, pay off debts, and so on and so on. And we will also enjoy life. So all these things require changes. To make any of these true, we need to change something. Problem is that when we talk about changes, a lot of us think that changes are just like diet programs. We just have to eat less and exercise more for now. We don't realize that if we want to stay with a change, we have to live with it forever. The change needs to change our DNA. This is not done by shifting a process or implementing a new methodology or running a change program. Nor change has to happen at the company's core with its people. Most critically, it needs to be embodied with the company leaders so they can guide us through the change. You see, adopting a different work style is committing to a lifestyle change, not just an aggressive diet. And tools and methods, they lack something we need to succeed. They lack leadership. That's not included in the method. We need to bring it our own. So we can see the changes as points of improvements or business improvements, but they will never be part of the company culture without leadership. So that's the difficulties. When we just implement something like this, we implement 10 changes at once, including all new roles and meetings. We need a product owner, a Scrum Master, a team, sprint backlog, product backlog, sprint reviews, sprint retrospectives, burn down chart, and so on. And all these changes, we need to understand the purpose of. We need to understand why we're doing them, because we will live with them for the rest of our lives, or until we make a new change. We need to go in with that mindset when we do the changes. So this is difficult. Implementing these 10 changes are difficult to make it last. You can implement it and just walk away, but if you want it to last for a longer time, it's difficult because you need to change people's mindset. It's not just a method. So imagine this. Now you should only see a white screen, by the way. Imagine you've been working on a project for 1 year, and today is the last day of the project. Today you will hand it over to the customer. This project is a physical product. It's a product that you have created. So you can't back it up in a cloud or something like that. It's a physical product, and you have stored it in your office. So this day in the morning, when you go to the office to pick it up, you see this. Your office has sunk down to earth here, together with your product. So the product is no more. Now the customer says, we're really sorry about this, but we really need that product and the product. So can you please do it again? Now the first time it took 12 months to do this project, 1 year to do this product. Do you think it would take longer time, the same time, or shorter time if you would do exactly the same project again? What do you think? Anyone going for, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, my take is, I mean, looking into this, it's very difficult to create something similar in the same exact, because now we have a lot of other building as well. Maybe these are not there in the beginning, right? So maybe it's like a complete flat land, right? So maybe it will take a little bit more planning in order to create something similar. This is my take. Some might say that, okay, because we have done something similar in the past, so maybe we'll take a little less time because we already know like how to build this from scratch, right? But yeah, again, that's again a different perspective. So yeah, this is my take. Yeah, over here.
Yeah, anyone else? So
If you do it again,
yes.
I was going to say, if you do the same thing again, you probably don't want to make the same mistakes that you have made prior to that. So you learn from your mistakes.
Exactly. Yeah, we do that. So in that case, it maybe go faster because we have learned quite much. One other problem is, of course, motivation. Are we motivated to do the same product again? And that takes longer time if we're not motivated. So we need to work with motivation if we want to do it faster. And we need to pick up our learnings, as you say also, to make it faster. Now, this is, of course, a specific case for doing exactly the same product again. Normally, we don't do that. But it's an interesting mind game, just looking into if I should do exactly the same thing again, what would I have done different? Because when we start up a new project, there are actually only two things we don't know. There are things we don't know, and there are things we don't know that we don't know. These are the only two things we don't know. The rest we know. Of course, these two things can be quite many when we look into it. And we call these normally bottlenecks. So our mission is, of course, to identify the bottlenecks as soon as possible. And if we are doing the same project over again, we probably know a lot of the bottlenecks that we run into the first time. And then we can handle them in a different way. So the earlier we identify the bottlenecks, the more time we have to handle them. So it's all about bottlenecks. Because the problem is that when we start something new, we have tons of decisions to make. We have really, really many decisions that we need to take. What is the budget for a project? Who will lead it? Who is the customer? Who is the user? How many people do we need? What should I do? What is the time plan? Any deadlines? Any milestones? And so and so on. So there are so many decisions we need to take, but we have so little knowledge when we start a new project. Of course, over time, the knowledge will increase and the number of decisions will decrease. So any idea we have when we're starting a project for us to gain more knowledge and to move decision forward is a good thing. That will help us. So for example, one thing I do when I work with a team and they should have a planning, I never book it on a Monday. I always book it on a Tuesday. This is because then I can tell the team, now you have Monday to work on the things that we will plan tomorrow. So they have a full day of finding bottlenecks in the things they will plan for tomorrow. Of course, it's difficult to work on those things because you haven't planned it, you haven't broken it down. There's a lot of things that is difficult with it, but you have one day to just start looking into it. If you're working with code, you can just start looking into the code, try to understand it. It's much easier to do the planning the day after when you have had this time. This is just one way of doing it. But of course, we need to find ways of gaining more knowledge earlier and move our decisions forward. Those we can move forward. And to do that, we might need a recipe for success. So this is what I'm summarizing. This is where I bring on the things that I usually see that we're missing when we set up an agile way of working, or we set up different new teams and so on. So the first point is start where you are. Isn't that just obvious? Do I really need to mention that? It should be obvious to start where you are. So if you're in London and you ask a taxi driver, hey, can you please take me to Piccadilly? And the taxi driver says, no, that's difficult. If I were you, I wouldn't start from here. But I am here, right? I can't be somewhere else. I'm starting from here. You have to take me from here. But for some reason, for us, it's really easy starting not where we are, starting somewhere else. We imagine that we are somewhere else. I will give you one example. Now we're doing Scrum. You're product owner, you are Scrum Master, you over there, you are the team. You will work for a product backlog, you will work on a sprint backlog, you will work in a sprint between 1 and 4 weeks. You will have daily meetings, you will have a sprint review afterwards, you will have a sprint retrospective, and you will have a burn down shot to follow up. Come on, let's start. What are you waiting for? If this is Agile, then I hate Agile. This is just pushing on a method to a team. It has nothing to do with a mindset. We're not experimenting here. We're not learning something. We're just pushing on a method and say, now let's be Agile, work in Scrum. So to me, this is not Agile. Of course, you can use this method to move into a mindset that we can call Agile. But just implementing the method itself is not Agile. Because when we do that, when we just push it on to a team, it becomes a revolution, like an Agile revolution. In a revolution, we have always something we want to escape from. There's something bad we don't want to see again. And to us, it's often the waterfall approach. When we meet people working in the waterfall approach, it's often like, oh, you're still working in waterfall? Oh, we have to stop doing that. You have to work agile. It's the modern thing. Come on. And it becomes some kind of revolution that we need to move into something quickly. Now, in a revolution, there's always these freedom fighters moving on the front with the revolution, keeping the flag. I usually call these people religious project managers. And a religious project manager is someone that's been working in the waterfall for like 10, 15, 20 years and got tired of it, and all of a sudden someone showed them Agile. Normally they show them Scrum, and all of a sudden they are in heaven. All of a sudden everything is beautiful and bright. And 2 days later, they are certified Scrum Masters and putting the badge on LinkedIn. Congratulations. And then they're just traveling around with this Agile Bible and preaching Agile to find more people that can join. And it goes quite quickly sometimes. Sometimes it's really quick. We are setting up 3 months, 6 months later, we are just leaving. And we haven't actually changed anything. We are just implementing the method and then moved on. So I don't believe we need this Agile revolution. I think we need an Agile evolution, where we take things one thing at a time, step by step. We learn and we make sure we're going forward. We inspect and we adapt. Even when we implement another way of working. Inspect and adapt is not a meeting, it's a mindset. So we can use that mindset when we're actually implementing another way of working also. Even though we have read the book, we can just go through step by step and experiment. Is this helping us? Doing a sprint review. What is the purpose of that? How can that help us? Understand the purpose behind it. So start where you are means that we need to understand for our whole organization, our teams, where are we today? And these are two good questions I used to use when I'm finding those answers. So what works well today? And what do we need to improve? Of course, the first question is the most important one, because these are things, what works well today are things we need to protect. These are the things we should not change. So we need to align on those and say, what really works well today? What should we not change? I don't care if it is not part of the Agile book. What works well? I asked one of our customers a couple of years ago this question, and I have one-on-ones with all the members in the team, and they all told me the same thing. They told me, in our team, it's easy to get help, and it's easy to ask for help. Okay, good. Then I know. In this case, we were splitting the team from one team into 3 teams. But then I know that we shouldn't move people physically around. They should just sit in one big room and work together. Even though there were 3 different teams, you couldn't really see there were 3 different teams. You just see a bunch of people, but they were sitting close to each other so they can help each other. This was, of course, before the Corona pandemic. So then I know what I need to protect when I make changes. Of course, the second question, what do we need to improve? I get a long list of improvements here. People have always something they want to improve. And that's good. That we also need to keep up. But we also first need to identify what works well and where do we start. So when we have done that, we can move on. This is exactly the same thing as for a basketball team. So what's the most valuable thing for a basketball team? What do you think here? Any suggestions?
The team itself, first of all, the most valuable thing for basketball team is the team itself. They should, team is the most important thing.
Yeah, team is really important thing, but they need something else to win.
That passion, that skill, that mindset, that okay, we can win, we will win. That should be the very first thing.
Yeah, and they
Because
also
you will win in actual ground later on, but you will win over here first. That's just yeah, whatever you thought from here, it will happen. Of course, some skills are required and obviously other things, but then important thing is, yes, we will win. If let's say we are some big opponent and if you just surrender, I mean, in the beginning, then obviously, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. Thank you so much. I really agree with you.
And
The mindset, yes.
I think we need a great coach who can really motivate them and guide them in the right direction.
That's also really important. That's also really important to win. The coach, we shouldn't forget about that. Thank you so much. But there's one
I would like to, yeah, I just wanted to add, so like a basketball team, there has to be really good coordination between the players. They should exactly, on the court, everyone should exactly know where the other guy is, so that they can pass the ball quickly from one end to the other.
Yeah. That's also a good answer. The cooperation between and knowing where you have your teammates and how you can collaborate to pass it around. But that's one single thing that is the most valuable for a basket team to win the game. And that is...
Can I try one more time?
Yes.
I would say some sort of trust and belief, because what happened in the basketball that you throw somewhere and you have to be there within a few seconds. Sometimes you just predict and you just do it. I mean, I've seen some passes from so long and they just send from there, and I mean, I don't know how they made it. Sometimes it looks like a magical thing. So yeah, I mean, this is one more input.
Yeah, that's great. And that's also about the sense of the game and knowing the game and all those things, right? But there's actually one single thing that is absolutely the most valuable thing for a basketball team. A basketball team wants to win the game. And to do that, they need a ball. So the most valuable thing is the ball. Of course, they need all the other things also, as you mentioned. That's really important. The collaboration, the coach, the way they think when they play. But to win the game, they need the ball. If the opponent has the ball all the time, they can't win the game. So what do a basketball player do with a ball when he gets the ball? Well, he protects it. He protects it as best he can. And he does that by keeping it, like in this image, far away as he can from the opponent. Now he has his left arm, the arm closest to the opponent, to pushing away the opponent. And he has the ball in the other arm as far away as the opponent. But the interesting thing is his legs. So his left leg, the leg closest to the opponent, that's the stable leg. That's the leg with the most weight on. That leg represents all the good things. All things we are proud of, all things we should not change. That's the stable leg. And then he has his other leg, the right leg in this picture, tipping on the toe. That's his flexible leg. That's the leg he used to try to find a way around the opponent. That's the leg he used to experiment with, to see if he can go around the opponent. Now, when he tries something and it's success, he moved over to that leg and lean over on the other leg. So he's moving his weight to that, because now that leg is the good leg. And then he uses his other leg to find another way. So the most valuable thing is the ball, because when the basketball team has the ball, they can score. Without the ball, they can't score. So when they can score, and they score more points than the opponents, they win the game. When they win most games in the series, they win the entire series. Now, when they win the entire series, they will probably get some money. And when they get money, they can continue playing basketball. Then they can live on their sport. And that's what they want. They want to play basketball. So they need to protect the most valuable thing they have, and that's the ball. Of course, scoring, winning games includes all the other things you also mentioned. Those are also important. That's what they need, the mindset, the coach, the way they collaborate and so on. And this is the same for us. We also need to identify what is good for us, what is our stability, what are the things we should not change, what is our stable leg, and what is our flexible leg. How can we experiment? But if we experiment with both legs, we will probably fall over. And if we don't experiment at all, just standing still, we will lose the ball. We will lose the most valuable thing we have. So we need to have this balance. One stable leg and one flexible leg. So when we have identified those things, find it and agreed on it, we can move on with the things we want to improve here. What do we want to achieve? What problems do we want to solve? What are we missing today to achieve what we want? You can start with those 3 questions and just collaborate around it, discuss it, and then find and align on the answers. Then we can move on talking about what is success for us? How do we define success? And when we've done that, we want to see it from the other side. What does failure look like? We also need to see that. We don't want to go there, but we need to identify it so we know what it is. And then how do we measure so that we know that we have reached our success or not? We need to follow up and we need to visualize it. And then who needs our services, our products, and what do they want to achieve? If those people do this exercise, what will they answer on the first question? This is good questions for a workshop that you can do. You can gather a team, you can gather organizations. Usually I start doing with the management group. I start with them. So we have a direction from management group. And then I work myself down the organization to have their direction as a lead for the next group and moving on to see. So I have all teams have a direction that is joined that way, that we're moving in the same way. So I usually use these questions for a workshop like that. Sorry. So I did this one time, or several times actually. I've done it with different companies, different organizations. I've done it with HR teams also. So an HR team told me that who needs our services? Well, our employees' families. That's why we do our service as an HR department. We need to make sure that if you will have a salary talk or something, or you will have vacation and so on, we need to make sure that the family knows how it's working, what happens to your salary and so on. We need to make sure the family is safe in that way, that they have all the answers. That was what's coming from the HR. Now I was doing this with another team working with a camera app. We're working with a mobile phone and we're doing a camera app. And the only thing they heard all the time was that you have to build the best camera. We need the best camera app. And the team was asking themselves, what is a good camera? And we couldn't really agree on that. So we invited a photographer. We asked a photographer and asked her, what is a good camera? And she immediately replied and said, what is a good image? And that was a starting point of a really interesting discussion that day. So we spent a full day with her taking photos and talk about what is a good picture? What is a good image? And we come up with a good image is some image that creates a feeling inside you, that creates either anger or happiness or sadness or something else, but it creates a feeling inside you. That's a good image. So then we went back with that and said, okay, so we need to help our users to create good images that create feelings. We need to help them to capture the moment. And then we did this exercise with these questions, and this was the output. We come up with this statement. We will not build the world's best camera, we will make the user the world's best photographer. So the good thing with this one was that, of course, it was working as an elevator pitch. We can just, when we met someone, we can say, what are you working on? I'm working on the camera, and we can tell them this thing. But we can also use it in our daily work. So when we have decisions and saying, okay, should we implement this feature? Well, are we actually helping the user to become the world's best photographer if we implement this feature? And if the answer was no, or we couldn't come up with a reason, maybe we shouldn't do that feature. If the answer was yes, the next question was, okay, why? And we agreed on the purpose behind the feature. So we can actually use this statement in our daily work as a decision making. So that's why it's important to make sure you find out where you are, what is good, and where are you heading. This is another example. This is an F-16, and it was ordered by the US Air Force in the 1970s. They asked Lockheed Martin to say, hey, can you create an aircraft for us? Yes, of course. What are your requirements? Well, we wanted to go twice the speed of sound. And Lockheed Martin said, wow, that's really fast. It's quite expensive to build an aircraft like that, and it's extremely dangerous to fly one. It's quite difficult to build also. Why do you want that? And the response was immediate. They said, we want to escape from combat. So you see, military has always this plan, what if? Of course, they have a plan for winning the battle, but they also have a plan for what if? If we can't get out of the battle, what should we do then? We need to protect the pilot. And then their solution was, we want a super fast aircraft, just put in the hyperspeed and go away out of the battle. Okay, so look at Martin, then we understand. And then they build this thing. And one thing they did was adding this glass bubble around the pilot. Now earlier it was difficult for a pilot to see on all angles above him. But with this glass bubble, the pilot could identify the enemy earlier, could follow the enemy more often, just to be able to escape from combat, if he wanted to. Another thing that they was building a glass shield in front of the pilot to project the instruments on. So the pilot didn't have to look down to see the altitude and speed. Could just look right forward, looking at an enemy maybe, and seeing his instruments, just to be able to escape from combat if he wanted to. Another thing that they was building a better suit and a better seat, because the most vulnerable thing in an aircraft is the human being. So they need to protect the human. So they build a better suit and a better seat that could cope with higher G-forces. So now the aircraft took take sharper turns to escape from combat. And they did a lot of other things with this aircraft to escape from combat. That was the purpose. When they delivered the aircraft, it didn't went twice the speed of sound. But that was what the customer wanted, right? That was the requirement. Now they have actually built a better aircraft than the US Air Force could think about. So this was a success, even though they was not following the requirements in that way. Because they didn't let the customer limit them. They didn't just listen to the requirement and to the solution and implemented it. They listened to the requirements, but they also asked why. Why do you want that? So they could understand the story behind it. And then they built a product because they were the experts in building aircrafts. US Air Force is not expert in building aircraft. They're experts in flying them, but not building them. So they just wanted to know, why do you want it that fast? So don't let the customer limit you. Because we want to build the right thing and not the thing right. When we build the right thing, we ask why. We understand the purpose behind it. When we're just building the thing right, we're following the requirements, but we don't really understand the story behind it. This is, by the way, a picture of the Wright brothers doing the right thing. This is another story. This is about a guy called Nick Swinmurn. Maybe you heard it. If you have read the Lean Startup book or Lean UX book, I think, and a couple of other Lean books, you probably heard of this story. Anyway, I will tell it. So Nick wanted to sell shoes online. That was a problem because he wanted to do it in 1999. Now, in 1999, you couldn't buy shoes online. No one could do that because there were no shoe stores online. How could it be? You have to try the shoes, right? You can't buy them online. But Nick, he wanted to try this. So he had two options. One option was to buy like 10,000 pair of shoes, put them on a website and try to sell them. Problem was, there was no customer behavior for buying shoes online. So he probably failed quite much. Sometimes it's good to fail, but we don't have to do it on purpose. His other option was to walk down to his local shoe store and ask them, can I take photos of all your shoes and post them on my website and try to sell them? And if anyone is buying them, I will just walk down here to you and buy those pair of shoes and send it to the customer. So he did. And the shoe store says, yeah, sure, that's fine. So all he invested was his time in taking the photos and creating the website. And then he started marketing his website. And after some time, he got his first customer, the first person ever to buy a pair of shoes online. So Nick, he went down to the shoe store, bought the shoes, and sent it to the customer. But the customer didn't know that Nick was doing it. The customer thought maybe this is just a big warehouse. I put an order online, and 2 days later, I get a pair of shoes. So Nick continued with this, and he got more and more customers. And no one knew that he was doing this now. After some time, there were too many orders for him to handle. So he started talking with the manufacturers of the shoes so he can buy them for the manufacturers. Earlier, Nick took the same price as the shoe store, so he didn't make any money. But what did he make? Well, he made customers, right? He was building his customer base. And then he just swapped the way he delivered the shoes. Instead of going down him personally buying them, he was just buying them from the manufacturer, because now he knew what shoes are sold, which shoes are the popular ones. So he could do that. The customers didn't notice anything. They will just continue buying. This is an example of an MVP, minimum viable product. And this particular case is also something called Wizard of Oz, because we don't see what's behind the curtain. We just see it's working, but we don't know exactly how. So when we work with MVPs, it's important to understand that we're working with a question. We have a question we want an answer to. And that, in this case, it would be, is it possible to sell shoes online? So every time you hear someone saying, oh, we work on MVP, you can always ask them, what is the question you're trying to examine? Because an MVP is something that you remove all the difficult stuff here and just find a short way to the customer to experiment. So I usually think about Nick and his shoe store when I'm trying to use an agile mindset in my work. How can I make it super simple and just make something that is working? I will get back to that later. Okay, so I spent quite much time talking about start where we are. But I think that's important, that we really build this foundation on understanding what is good and where we're heading, what is our direction, and how do we get there. The next point on the recipe for success is show and tell. So how do we know what you're working on right now? How do we know that you're stressed? How do we know that you have nothing to do? How do we know that you're done? How do we know what's the next thing? How does our customers know that we are stuck? How do we know we have a lot to do in a week? How do we know we are keeping a steady flow? And how do we know how long time we were waiting for an answer? By showing and telling. And these are 3 areas I believe we should focus on when it comes to visualization. So if we start from the top left corner, we're talking about the goal. The goal is not the same thing as the vision, but we need to have a goal also that we break down and we visualize it. In this case, we just draw a line. Maybe this is number of users, or it's a number of customers, or this is our lead time we're aiming for, or something else. But we need to visualize it, and we can show here also how far we have come. Moving to the picture to the top right corner is the progress. How are we working? How is our process? Who is working on what? And this is also important that we have one board for the team. Sometimes I see project boards, that you have a project board for a specific project and people are doing the notes there. Problem is if those people are working on several projects, because then we have their name on different boards. I, as a leader, have difficulties then to follow up and see how we're doing, how much do you have to work on. So I believe in a board where you show your progress, you must show 100% of your time. Otherwise, it's difficult for me to follow up. If I see your name of 5 notes, I can say, hey, your name of 5 notes. Is it really working? Should we help? How can I support? Maybe you don't have to do all those 5 at the same time. But that's difficult when we have these project boards that we have several people are on different boards. I will get back to the progress boards also. Now, the picture at the bottom with the sheep represents the backlog. Everyone wants to be on top. And this is also something we need to visualize and show and tell, so we can understand it. Because we need to understand our backlog. We need to understand what's in it and why it's there, and also understand the priority. So if I'm a product owner and I get a request of doing something and say, hey, put it on top of your backlog, it's super important. I can just go in and say, okay, the top item on my backlog is this security patch. I need to have it done by next week. Otherwise, Google will shut us down or something. I know the consequence. Do you think your thing is more important than that? No, maybe not. Put it on second. Yeah, the second one is a report to our CEO. She will have a meeting with our stakeholders next week, and she really needs this report to show how it's going right now. Without that report, it will probably lose some business here. Do you think your thing is more important than that? No, maybe not. And I can continue with that, like that. Just walking down the backlog, taking the stakeholder in the hand and just walk down the backlog and say, these are the things. They are here for a purpose. And then we find a spot. Yeah, I think your thing can be here. It's a good place. Then we have aligned. So it's important to show your backlog, to visualize it, and to understand it. This is one example of working with the goals. This is coming from Toyota. Maybe you've seen it before. It's an improvement wall. And we start on the top left corner here, writing down the problem, the now situation. What are we working on now? That is our problem. Write it down, a couple of sentences. And then you take a step back and look into definition of awesome. So what is awesome in this area? When are we awesome? When we people write books about us for solving this problem. Think really outside the box. There's no limit at all. And then you write down the next target condition. So now we have the now situation, where we are now, and we have put something far away for the awesome. Now we take our first target condition. Where is that? So write down how we would like it to be in X number of weeks. Maybe in 1 week or 2 weeks or 5-6 weeks or something like that. Write it down, a couple of sentences. This is target condition. This is what we're aiming for in a couple of weeks. And then you write down the first steps for getting there. So when you're done those 3 first steps, you review it and say, hey, did we reach this target condition or not? No, we didn't. Did we solve the problem? No, we didn't. Okay, we need 3 new steps there. So we had 3 ones, and then we review it again, and probably picking up the learnings that we put our target condition too far away. Next time we need it closer. This is a good way of visualizing. And the thing is, when we do improvements, a lot of people forget how it was before the improvement, because we don't reflect on that. We don't really see that. So we're just moving on. But for this board, you can actually show them. This was the problem. We solved it like this. We're aiming here, we're going here. You know, you can show the progress. Quite simple tool, but you need to work on it and follow up on it. When we look into backlogs, this is a good exercise also, and I do this myself at home for the things I should do. So I just write it down on a note, and I put it on the wall, and I put it above the line if I believe I can do it within a day. And if I think it takes more than a day, I put it below the line. And I'm only allowed to pick one card from the top. I can't take any cards from below. And when the cards from the top are out, I have to break down the other ones. So this is also a good exercise for a product owner, because product owners also need to break down. The breaking down process doesn't start in the team. It starts when we meet with the customers, when we understand the purpose, when we see the business case, and breaking it down. Then the team will continue breaking it down into smaller things to implement it. But it also starts much earlier. So it's a good exercise also for product owners to do this, because you're trying on to break down things here. And that's important. This is, of course, a simple board. You've probably seen it hundreds of times. The interesting thing here is that the to-do field and the doing field is the same size. So you can get in equally amount of work, both in to-do and doing. But of course, this shows the simple process to do, doing, done. Now we want to improve that one. We can do like this. I think this picture is awesome. To the left, it says to do, and to the right, it says done. And on the yellow arrow, it says doing. So this little boy, he can only do one thing at a time. Maybe this is his homework or something else he needs to do at home, but he can only have one note ongoing. So this is really, really great. Of course, we can look into more advanced boards. This is more of a Kanban board. We have the red numbers here as the WIP limits. That means how many things we are allowed to keep on having ongoing at the same time within the column. And then we have also ongoing and done. So we have split each column into 2 fields, ongoing and done. This is what I'm working on. This is what I'm done with. And by doing that, we can also create a queue system. So then we know that we will have a lot of things to do, because there's a lot of things in the done column for the scope, for example, and then we know that we need to publish a lot after we have created it. So this helps us to look into the future in some way. And of course, we have a definition of done per column also to understand when are we done with it. Yeah, I guess you have seen these kinds of boards several times, so I don't have to go in detail. But it's a little more advanced. This is another way of visualization. In here, I have measured the teams. So I have measured how long time does it take average for them to complete a task. And the task is the one with a yellow line on to the left. So in the new, we have 3 tasks, ongoing 2, and done is 1. So I know that the average time for completing a task is 4 days. So I have added a color scheme here. And when anything is moved or created, when it's created or moved into ongoing and done, if we get this darker green color, as you can see on ongoing at the bottom, for 2 days. So in 2 days, they will have this darker green. After 2 days, it will get the lighter green. And after total 4 days, it will be white. So just by looking at this, I can instantly see that we have a green flow. Everything is going well. I don't have to ask any questions here. The team is keeping their pace. I can also see in the done column that we closed something here 2 to 4 days ago. I can also see that the new stuff was created more than 4 days ago. Now, if anyone creates something new and try to sneak something in here, I will notice, because then it's a darker green box coming up in the new field. So this is a good way of just instantly see what is the progress here, how are we doing, are we keeping our pulse in the team? Simple way of doing that. Of course, it's working really good with these digital tools, because then you can add these colors into it. That was show and tell. The next step is stop, starting, start, finishing. And now I will share a video with you that we will reflect on. So I hope there's no lagging going on. I will just do like this. Should be able to see it. Now we start the video, and it's, as you can see, 1.5 minutes. And then I go back to the presentation and we'll reflect. So let me know if something is not working with the technique, if you can't see the movie.
Sure. Yeah, please go ahead. We can't hear the voice, but I think that's okay. Just a sound. Yeah. The message is into the board.
Yeah, there's no sound in it.
Yeah. Yeah, Rog, it's a great example. I have seen this your video earlier on LinkedIn. But yeah, let's see. Or no, I'm just telling, like, it's a great video, the one which you are playing, right? I have seen this on a LinkedIn earlier, and with this video only I came to know about you, and that's how I reached you. Okay, so yeah, it's a very good visualized way of giving an example. So yes, we will get to know like what exactly you want to convey out of this.
So now I'm writing the numbers here, and that's the time. So 36 seconds was the time to write ABCD. 44 seconds was to write all 3 projects. Okay, so I will do like this. So this was an exercise of creating 3 different projects: ABCD, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4 with Roman letters. And of course, first time I did it in parallel and had all the pens going on. So I had to put the corks onto the pen, otherwise the pen will dry out. And then I take the next one and so on. So this is just a short exercise. When I do this in physical with an audience, I usually pick up 2 people from audience, and they have to write the 10 first letters in the alphabet, and then 1 to 10, 1 to 10. And when you do that, you can actually hear people, even though they know the alphabet, you can hear them say A, B, C, D, E, F. Because all of a sudden that's difficult, because they are thinking, what about this Roman 8? Is it V111 or is it 11X? They are thinking about something else, and all of a sudden the most simple thing, like the alphabet, becomes difficult for them. So this is just an exercise of visualizing. If we break down, we take one thing at a time, we will actually work faster. So of course, the alphabet is longer than 4 letters. So I broke it down. I broke it down into something that I can complete without being blocked. So that's why I did ABCD. But I still provided a value, because you could still understand that it will go faster if I do it like this. So any other reflections on this? Have you noticed anything of this in your work, that you're working with too many things at the same time?
Yeah, this is something related to context switching, right, Raja? So,
Yes, it is.
So yeah, so we need to stick to one thing at a time. So in order to complete that particular task and then move on to the next. So that will actually save time, because our human brains are not used to the context switching. They are used to it, unlike the machines or the computers. So the humans are not accompanied to context switching. They really don't support it. So we need to work on one thing at a time, because it takes some time to switch from one task to another task. So the time loss is there while
Yeah.
switching from one to other. Yeah.
Exactly. It is about context switching, and but it's also about breaking down. So that's also important, to break it down into tangible pieces that you believe you can complete without being blocked, but still providing value. So of course I could choose to write the whole alphabet, but it would take some time, and I don't think I would provide more value than I did with only writing the 4 first letters. So that's also the tricky. Of course, when we compare the results here, the end result, it's more or less the same, right? Even though with super important projects, we need to start them all at the same time. When we're done, exactly the same end result. But the difference was, of course, in the second one, I did it much faster. So I wrote the entire all 3 projects in 14 seconds compared to 44 seconds the first time. And I wrote ABCD in 3 seconds compared to 36 seconds the first time. Now I know the alphabet, but it still took me 36 seconds. If I would ask, what's your estimate on writing ABCD? The estimate will never be 36 seconds. Then I would say, hey, are you stupid? Don't you know the alphabet? Yeah, I know the alphabet. Why do you think 36 seconds? But when we are working with other things, other projects at the same time, these simple things take longer time. So what happens when we're trying to utilize people to 100%? Because this is also about finding time for ourselves here. So if I just gave you assignments to work on 8 hours a day, every day, pushing on, what would happen? You would probably not be able to answer a single question because you were occupied with the work. You will not have any time to learn anything. You can't attend to your customer needs. And there's absolutely no chance that we can change anything. This is what happens. And this is what it looks like. So it doesn't matter how fast this donkey is running, because the carriage with the packages will not get to its end destination. Sometimes I'm that donkey, sometimes you that donkey, sometimes our team is that donkey, sometimes our manager is that donkey. It happened to us all, but we don't want it to happen, but it is happening. And we just need a way of handling it when it happens. So in this example, we should probably just offload a few packages. Question is then, what packages should we offload and what should we keep? And I believe we should keep the good ones and the important ones. So when people are stressing too much and going into some sickness about it, we usually just remove everything from them and say, go home, take it easy, go home. But then we have also removed all the good stuff. The good stuff that they need, like meeting colleagues, having lunch with colleagues, the social stuff, the important stuff also. And then we just remove everything. So I think we need to take it easy, just remove the bad packages here. Those are not important. If we remove everything here, the donkey will probably break his legs, because then it will be a hard crash down to the earth. So we need to get it down slowly. This is an interesting topic, and it really, we see it a lot. It's so easy to just push on with our teams and doing more and more things. But it's also important to have this kind of system in your team, in your organization, What happens when we are doing too much? Because we know that we will not be able to deliver faster because there's a lot of context switching. So leave some space for miracles. I think that's really a good phrase. Try to leave some space for miracles. Find a way of just offloading, like a lot, like every day, every week. One thing I'm experimenting with is actually with the teams I'm working with to say that, okay, we have 1 week in a day and 1 day in a week where we have no meetings. So pick any day, but we need to have the same day in the team, and we don't have any meetings that day. That day you can start working when you want to, you can go home when you want. That's fine. We all know what we should do, but we have no meetings. If you need a meeting for collaboration, of course you can have that, but we don't know meetings that you have to go to. That's one way of finding space or leaving some space for miracles. Because when we actually have time to focus, we will do great stuff. The camera team I talked about earlier, they decided to have 3 days in the week with no meetings. That was almost too much. That was really difficult because that meant we have Tuesday and Thursday full of meetings. There were all the meetings we were doing these 2 days, but then we had nothing on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Sometimes we take it too far, but then we know we need to experiment and understand the balance on this. There are probably other things you can do also for leave some space for miracles, but it's important to keep that with you. So, last point here, measure and manage your performance. This is a roller coaster in Sweden, in Gothenburg. It's called Balder. And when you stand in line in Balder, there's a sign and it says 20 minutes. That means in 20 minutes, it's your turn. So how do they know? Well, they know how long time the ride takes, and they know how many people they can fit in one train, and they know the time it takes for people to leave the train and to enter the train. So they can calculate how long time it takes for you. If you stand here, it takes 20 minutes. If you stand a couple of meters forward, it would take 10 minutes, and a couple of meters another way, 30 minutes. But where you're standing, it takes 20 minutes. If you go into London, if you go in this London Eye, you will get a ticket with a time, maybe 11:57. That means exactly 11:57. It's your turn. And trust me, it's right. I've done it several times. They are right. So if they can measure, we can measure. Wouldn't it be great if we can just look at our backlog and say, yeah, if we put it here on this level, it would take us 2 weeks. If we put it here, it would take 1 week, and over here it would take 3 weeks. Wouldn't it just be great to have a backlog like that? That's difficult, but we need to aim for it still. And this is one way of doing it. This is an exercise I do with teams where I just write down what they need to do. We can talk about as user stories, or we can talk about tasks, but it doesn't really matter. They just write down the things they need to do. And then I just pick a note, anyone note, and just say, okay, put it in the middle, take the next one. Is this one bigger or smaller? It's smaller. Okay, then I put it above. Take the next note. Is this bigger or smaller? It's larger. Okay, put it below. And then I just continue with all the notes, and I end up like this. So I have a full line of notes with all our work. And then I draw 2 lines and say, things above this line is small, and things below this line is large, and the things in the middle are medium. Now we haven't put any numbers into this. We haven't put any days and saying a small is 2 days, because we don't know. And then we just start working and measure. And after some time, we have done 8 small notes. We have done 3 medium and 2 large. The small ones took between 1 and 3 days, and the average was 2 days. The medium was between 2 and 6 days, and the average was 4 days. And the large ones was between 4 and 46 days, with the average of 25 days. So what can we do with this data? Absolutely right. We can't do anything. We have to continue. So now we have done 120 small ones, 36 medium, and 21 large ones. Now, if you come up to me and say, hey, Roger, I want this team to do this thing. Yeah, okay, so we take a look at it. And we compare with the things we have done before and say, yeah, when we look at this job, we think it's similar to these small ones we have done before. Now, we have done 120 small jobs before. They took between 1 and 5 days, and the average is 1.6 days. Do you trust me? And you do. This is facts. I'm not guessing here. This is facts. This is something I've measured. So this is a great way of building trust with a team. This is our performance. Now, if you think it's too low, maybe we need to change something and increase it. But if we don't see that, we can just continue. This is our performance. So then we can build trust. So if you're working with a team that has been delivered 100 deliveries and they have been on time every time, you will trust them. That's the thing. And the key here is to have the team to decide what's on time by measuring the performance. So I'm not giving this number and say, yeah, we will deliver it on Wednesday. I'm saying we will deliver it between probably 1 and 5 days. Our average is 1.6 days. So if we start on Monday, average is delivering on Tuesday. You decide if you want to believe that, or if you want to believe on the 1 day or 5 day. These are the numbers. You see? So I'm just showing. When you do this with a team, it could look something like this. So I'm using Power BI here, and I'm measuring this team for some time. And these are the small jobs they do. Now we can see the average is, sorry, it's in Swedish actually, some of it, but its average is on 8.98 days, and the max is 151, and we have done 96 of these for this period. So I don't care about the ones at the bottom, the ones below 20 or something like that. I don't care about those, but there are 3 here. The one on top, of course, the one on 151 days, and there are 2 others quite big on 50 days something, and just someone above 40. Those are the things I want to reflect on. Those are the things I take with the team and say, hey, what happened here? Was it something we didn't know? Was it something we didn't know that we didn't know? Why did it take some time? Or did we just forget it? What happened? So we can keep our pace here. We can also measure throughput. This is measured on a team that were working during the Corona pandemic. So it started end of 2019, and it's ended here on 2021. So before Christmas, because the people were off on the Christmas, so you can see that on the first 2020, the dark one there, that was when people were on Christmas holiday. So this is the large, medium, and small ones. And after Christmas, people come back, and we were speeding up again. But then something happened. We couldn't really control it, and we were losing pace here, and the Corona hit us, and we were all of a sudden forced to go home, and we start losing communication, and we tried to find ways of collaborating when everyone was working from home. So obviously the throughput went down. But then after summer, we said, okay, we need to work on this, because we need to get the speed up here again, and Corona will not just disappear. So we need to handle that. That's the daily thing now. We need to come up with a way of working so we can collaborate better. And you can see that if I show you with this pen here. When we get back from a summer vacation, we start working, increasing the throughput. Now, if you see this, it's high, low, high, low, high, low, high, low, high, and so on. This is a pattern that says the team is not breaking down small enough. So they have things that's taking longer than a week, because each date here is 1 week. So the things that we're doing were taking longer than a week. And then we see this pattern when we have high, low, high, low, high, low between each other. And then we need to break it down more. So we get smaller things, we can complete it more in a week. So we got a more stable flow here. That was measure and manage your performance. Now, this recipe for success is actually called something else. I probably have guessed it already. It's called Kanban. So what is Kanban then? Well, Kanban is a super simple process improvement tool. You can apply it to almost any process. So why did I talk about Kanban? Well, I've been talking about Kanban now for the last hour or so, but I haven't mentioned the word Kanban. I've just talked about what it is. And I did the same thing with this French developer manager that yelled at me, I hate Agile. 1 month after that, we had a conference in Sweden with a whole company. And I was talking there and I thought, hey, I just need to talk about Agile because I think we really need to look into that. So I was presenting the Agile manifesto in 30 minutes without mentioning the word Agile one single time. I was just talking about what it was, showing images and try to inspire people like I've done today. So I've been talking about Kanban, but not mentioning Kanban. And I think that's important, that we don't just talk about the buzzwords, that we actually understand what's behind it. What is really the core of the methods, of the things we do, of the tools, and how can we use it to improve our teams? And to me, it doesn't matter if we call it Scrum or Kanban or something else. If it's working for us, let's do it. So we just need to find these different tools. And this was a list of things I have noticed that if a team is working with this, to start where you are, identifying what is good, where you're heading, start with visualization, with your progress, the backlog, the goals, are aware of your WIP limits, that you shouldn't take on too much, limit the context switching, and find a way of measuring your performance to build trust. A team like that has built a super stable foundation. If we call it Scrum or Kanban, something else, doesn't care. The team has built a super stable foundation. If that team wants to work Scrum, fine, do it. The step for taking into a Scrum is so small that they can do it because they have a really solid foundation. So these are the things I work with. These are the things I'm trying to help management teams with and teams with to implement and to build. So I will just have a short summary and then we'll look into questions. So changes are not diet programs. It's a lifetime commitment. We need to find the bottlenecks, identify them as early as possible. We need to protect what's good. And we need to find what is good today, what is our stability, what is our pride, and what are we flexible on, what should we experiment on. I don't think we should talk about this as an Agile revolution. I think we should talk about it as an Agile evolution. And we need to understand the purpose of what we're doing. Ask the question why. Because we don't want to get limited by the customer. Because we want to do the right thing and not the thing right. We also want to visualize our progress, our goals, our backlog, our to-do list. And we need to think about the WIP limit. Don't take on too many things, because then we might up as the donkey. And we need to find a way of measuring our performance to build trust. This is just a QR code for my LinkedIn page. If you want to connect, you can pick up your phone, start the camera, and we'll probably notify you about the LinkedIn page. So that's it.
Hey, thanks, Wagir. So before, I have like a couple of questions for you, but I would like to take this opportunity with whoever is here in this call with us. Guys, if you have any sort of queries, doubt, it's not like specific to this session only, anything, if you have some sort of confusion or something like that, feel free to ask Rogi. Yeah. So any queries, anything from you guys? Sachank, Prashant, Puneet, Neha, Avantika. Guys, you are Scrum Masters, huh? So if you will shy yourself, you're not going to ask, it will be difficult, okay? Yeah, okay. So Rocky, I have like, first of all, I really like a couple of metaphors which you have given in terms of client limiting yourself. The way you have used that USA fighter plane example where the requirement is something and then though they guys have created something else because you mentioned, right, the Air Force is one who is going to use it, but then someone else is going to build it, right? So that's something good takeaway for me in terms of we should not always focus entirely on the requirement which we are getting. We should always ask or challenge or ask like, okay, why you are doing this? Why you are doing this? What benefit you are getting out of this, right? So that's a good thing which most of the time people forget. We just got the requirement in some sort of user story or some document and we just start working on that without asking question why. We always think about how part, so not why, like why we are or why the client is or why what problem we are going to resolve. So that's a good thing which you mentioned. One thing which if you can also elaborate a little bit more about the measure performance. So this performance thing is very subjective. It varies from organization to organization, from teams to team, you know, from culture to culture, from place to place, from country to country. So it will very difficult, especially when we are working in a distributed kind of environment nowadays. That okay, one team is sitting in India, one is into USA, maybe one into Australia. So how we can compare or how can we can measure the performance of anything, whether it's a project outcome or it's a organizational performance or is a individual performance or is a team performance. So if you can put your thought on this, it will be great. Agreed.
Yes, I will try. Thank you so much for a summary also. Yeah, about measurements. First of all, it's important to remember that the measurements I'm talking about here is team performance. So it's not measurements for management. That's important. It's the team's performance. So they should in best case, do it themselves. But that's important for them to see this. I used to compare it to a pilot walking into an aircraft with no instruments. It doesn't know the altitude or speed or anything. Would a pilot would like to fly that plane? I don't think so. And it's the same for the team. It's also building their performances. Now, should be very careful of comparing measurements between teams, but teams are consist of different people, different knowledge, and there are different goals and different business areas also. So you can't really say that, oh, one team is having this performance and this throughput, and we compare to this team and that's better. Well, maybe they are doing completely different stuff and there are more people in the team and so on. So it's really something you should protect for the team, is their performances. The measurements I showed here were done at Tetra Pak when I was working there, and the team setup was both in India and in Sweden. So each team have some people in Sweden and some people in India. And we were working with digital tools. So everyone was in the same board working. And then we could pick up the data and just put it into Power BI and measure. And we did that for over 2 years. And then we can actually use that data into the planning and saying, okay, so this team is delivering 30 user stories in a sprint or something. And it's been doing that for 6 months. So, and we don't see any changes in the team. It's the same people. There are no other vacations, there are nothing else that will change what we can see now. So we believe that the team will deliver 30 user stories even the next sprint. And then we can be predictable. But it's the team's performance. So there are other measurements for management to look into also. It's really important. Some people take this and take the management and say, hey, now we can compare teams. And 1 week later, you get a notice saying, hey, all teams need to improve the throughput with 15%. And they haven't got anything about it. They don't understand what is coming from and how do you use it. So it's a great tool, but it can be a lethal weapon if you don't know how to use it.
Okay, yeah. Basically, you guys are using this particular tool, but do you have infused any, what should I say, kind of matrices? What measurement you have taken? What is your lower limit or upper limit or UCL or LCL?
Yeah.
Do you have any kind of target or goals, something like in between?
First of all, that's difficult. When I start with a new team and I just want them to work, because it's difficult to put a target on a new team. When I did it first time with this first team, I just said to all product management and everything that I don't know when this team will deliver. And I was keeping doing that for 3 months. So we were measuring the team for 3 months. Then we just continued working. After 3 months, I started seeing the patterns. But then people got used to me saying, I don't know. So I can continue 3 more months. So after 6 months, I could really see the pattern. And then I know. So I don't think you should put goals on it before you know anything. You should have a stable limit first. So you see it's a line, sharp line, and you can see that, okay, past 6 months, we are doing the same performance. Okay, let's talk about goals. And why do we need to improve? And how much? What will happen when we improve? Where is the business outcome? What is the impact if we improve our performance here? But it's the same thing. You need to start where you are. So you need to have a baseline and say, okay, today we're delivering 30 user stories in a sprint. And we want to increase it to 40. Okay, why? What will happen? And then we need to measure and see the actions we take, that they are either helping or we are failing on it. But the ground point is to have the line and just say, this is the team's performance. Good or not, but this is the performance. So we start there.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Augie. Okay. Any other queries from anyone, guys?
Maybe this could be something really basic, but I just posted a question, Sundan. So my question is like, as a new Scrum team, how do we approach our stakeholders with the right questions to know why the customer has come up with that requirement? So is there an approach that we can reach to our stakeholders as to get that information from him? Or
Well, that depends on the stakeholder, and also I guess this is the product owner that you're raising this question to, right? So it's also important that the product owner asks those questions, of course, and that goes out. Sometimes they don't dare to do that, and then it's difficult for them to pass on the information. Product owner is someone you don't want as a proxy. A proxy product owner is just moving information from the customer to the team and ask no questions, and that's what you want to avoid. So you want to also to say, hey, we just need to understand why and drive those questions. And it's building a part of our culture also that always asking why, that you're actually taking up every time. Okay, why do we want to do this? Having this vision statement is helping you, because then it's you have a line or a direction, and then you can see we're not following direction if we do these things. Why do we want to do it? Because then it's easier for you also to follow up on it.
yeah, thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other queries, guys? Okay, I think yeah, we are on time, Roger. Whatever the time which we have think of. So yeah, thanks a lot, Roger, for your time, and it's a great learning. I have learned a lot of new concepts, or few concepts which we have refreshed. It's always good to go back to the basic and just refresh whatever you have learned so far in last couple of years, right? So yeah, it's a great session, Roger. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thanks everyone for joining. Bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you, Roger.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
So much.
Bye.